On this week's Cowboy Up podcast, meet Anna Twinney. Anna Twinney's Reach Out to Horses program gives you the opportunity to learn the methodologies and concepts necessary to fully understand and work in the language of the horse. Anna is a noted International Equine Specialist, natural horsemanship clinician, animal communicator, and energy healer. Her hands-on approach will allow you to gain insight and understanding into the mind of the horse. Learn how to leave the one-way conversation behind and build a true connection and trust-based partnership with your horse. Without wasting any more time, let's talk to Anna. Good morning, Mr. Russell True. How are you?
I'm all right. It's that time of year where the ranch gets really busy, and if you can keep everything lined out, sort of, then it's the best time to be here.
Well, and we're starting to enter that great time of the year. I enjoy it anyway, and it causes other people some stress. We're starting to kind of get into the holidays. And I enjoy it because I get to see family that I haven't seen for a while, and then I get to not see them for a long while. And I don't know which one of those is best. So I'm excited about that.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm not a holiday guy. I'm the bah humbug guy.
Well, so. I want to be because it's expensive, but we got a brand new granddaughter that's not going to work this year.
We always say we make them, we don't take them. So anyway, today we have Anna Twinney. She's been the lead trainer with Monty Roberts. She does animal communication. She's a Mustang breaker. There's lots of videos and books and all kinds of programs around the world and around the country and at White Stallion Ranch. A couple are coming up right around the corner. This week is shot by again, so she's going to be here really soon. And depending on when this airs, it might be after the fact. But anyway, Anna, great to have you.
Well, thank you as always to invite me on your show. It's always my pleasure. I enjoy sharing what I do with other people and those perhaps that are new to it.
Yeah.
I am super interested in learning more about it because I know a little, I don't know a lot. I know Russell knows a lot. And I would like you to educate me as if I'm in the second grade and this is the third time I've seen a horse in my life. Would you be willing to do that? Because the concept of talking to an animal is amazing to me.
Mm-hmm. That actually makes it a lot easier because if anybody listening, if they shut their eyes and they take themselves back to that childhood, indeed, most children can connect and communicate with the animals. Sometimes I think it's perceived as invisible friends or imagination games, where indeed perhaps there's way more to it, but it's easily shut down in anybody. Just takes an adult or a friend to look sideways, do that sideways glance, or tell somebody that that's not possible. But Disney jumped on this whole bandwagon and created Dr. Dolittle. And while people watch it with Disney and they might think, well, that's fantasy, it truly isn't fantasy. It's a gift that we're all born with, and it's a matter of us coming away from all of these abilities and then nobody reawakening them. And that's when I come along. I come along to go, you know what? This is your birthright. You have a gift, and let me show you how to reconnect with all that's inside of you to be able to connect with nature and the little animals, the big animals, and everybody in between.
Well, that was really interesting to me because when we talked on the phone, you said it's not just horses, it's all animals.
Yes, it's been really fascinating, actually, because I came to animal communication through horse whispering, and it was during my time at Monty Roberts. And I remember it so clearly because I stood outside a stall, and in those days he had a big 4-stall barn, or not 4-stall barn, it was 40 stalls. And I stood in front of one, and her name or her barn name was number 19, and I remember clearly seeing her racing colors. And instead of just going up to somebody to go, you know what, this horse has just told me about the racing colors, I went in there to say, do you know what color she had when she raced? And they were bang on the same. And for me, this began to be the opening of what is possible, that sporadically visions would come in. Sporadically, I'd feel emotions or feel sensations that we had to identify. And that's truly what animal communication is. It comes in a number of ways. So if somebody sees in pictures by nature, so you shut your eyes and you see in pictures, or your memories are in pictures, the chances are that it comes through imagery. If you feel emotions or sense things within your body, so for example, your tummy churns or your heart sinks or your heart sings, and you have that sensation, then you're going to get more through animal communication. If you see colors or you hear voices, no matter what it is, that's what's enhanced. And what you have to do is begin to break it down to understand what is mine and what is theirs. And that's what takes the finesse, is to come to realize that if you can tune in onto the bandwidth of what that animal is frequencing on, that's a good way to say it. That's how you tune in. It would be no different than tuning into a human mind and realizing, well, they're on a certain bandwidth. How do I get in touch with that bandwidth? And so therefore you could dialogue back and forth. And people are familiar with that. They're familiar with the fact that the phone will ring and they were expecting the call or thinking about that person, or they go down to the barn and they find a certain scenario. So any animal, it really is quite spectacular. It's funny you talk about any animals, because I just did a session with a raccoon in Germany, of all things. So this is a long-distance communication and connection. You can be at home and connect with all animals globally, which stretches the mind, I'm sure.
Stretches mine.
Yeah.
It does stretch your mind a bit. And it's like connecting with one of your horses there. And it's not, actually, it's become not uncommon for me to connect with somebody over there and do it from far away. And that's really lovely to realize that distance doesn't play a part, and that it doesn't matter if it's across the paddock or indeed across the country or the continent. Distance doesn't play a part. And if we can quieten our mind to be able to connect to that, and this is a lot of it, what is quietening the mind, right? If you have 1,000 thoughts going around, or 100 at any one time, but there's tons of thoughts going throughout the day, and I think they've measured it at 60,000 thoughts for an individual per day, you've got to learn to quieten that down, because nothing can come through if it's busy. So therefore you learn to silence the mind. But that's not the only thing. If you stay in the mind because you're problem solving and discerning and reasoning and doing all that, then you're not in your heart either. And one of the arts of animal communication is to stay neutral and to stay in a place of empathy. Because if you're discerning and dissecting, you're not there, and you're staying bang on in the mind. There's a certain place within each of us that we can silence the mind, drop into the heart from the head, and then we can hear the animal speak. But you know what? It's not quite like Dr. Doolittle that I referenced before, that somebody would have a smile on their face and hear a squeaky voice like Donald Duck or anything like that. It isn't. It's your own voice. If you're going to hear it, it's your own voice. And it's random and it's sporadic. And then you learn to harness that and control it so that you can switch it on and off.
Interesting. I mean, I watch... I've been fortunate enough to watch Russell work with horses when he puts shoes on them 3 or 4 times. And it's like he gets into a rhythm and some level of communication with the horse that he's working on. And it becomes especially apparent to me when he's working on a horse that is in some level of pain. It's a horse that's just come in and he's outfitting them with new shoes. And it's kind of remarkable how he and the horse kind of, I want to call it pseudo-communication, but what I'm hearing from you, it's not just pseudo-communication, it's actual communication.
No, in my case, it's pseudo.
Is it? Okay.
Well, there's other pieces to it, right? Because Russell knows his craft. He's entering it with a degree of confidence. and self-assuredness. He knows it, so the energy level shifts. It's a big thing to have that energetic exchange. And the horses can read the energy from so far away. In fact, out in the wild, I was with the McCullough Peaks wild horses, and they can read the body language and the intention from, they're stating, 5 miles away because it's an open plain. And so 5 miles away, these horses connect to understand if they need to run or stay. And that was the same in Australia. It was approximately 2, 3, 4 miles away because there could be brush in between. But the point to that is they're going to read intention, and that's an energetic intention as well as the smallest nuances. So when it comes back to Russell, it's a combination. There's body language, there's the visualization, and then there's that energetic exchange to go. He knows who he is. He's totally authentic. He's totally aligned, and that's what they're also seeking. And there's no better individual than a horse when you're looking for alignment, whatever that might be. You know, they could be in flight or fight, but ultimately they're completely aligned.
You know, you talk about 5 miles away, they read the intent. I took my son, Stephen, when he was 13 on a safari to Africa. Didn't want to go. Amazing experience. Anybody who can should. But we're driving around. We had our own guide. We had a connection. We had just a super experience. And so the guide's taking us around, and there's all these animals. It's just like in the movies. It's unbelievable. And through these gazelles and different things walk a pride of lions. And the animals don't even raise their head. They're just sitting there grazing away. Everybody's kind of happy. It's like Disney is being shot right then. And I said to the guide, I said, well, there go 5 lionesses. I said, nobody cares. And he goes, yeah, they know. They're not hungry right now. Nobody's worried. Life moves on until they get hungry. Then it'll change. Yeah, it was startling. It was absolutely startling. Nobody cared.
That's
right. And I love to think about those moments, actually. And I've been fortunate also to see something similar. And I think about those moments to go, is that body language? You know, when they crouch down and then they're ready to pounce, is the horse looking at that? Well, yes and no. There's going to be nuances that differ between drinking at a water hole to pouncing. And yet, I think they see and feel that energy.
Clearly.
See and feel.
But I had a very cynical thought. I thought, you know, if these lions could figure out how to fake this, hunting would get so easy. They could just walk up and take one. They wouldn't even have to stay in shape. So
they would, but they're very muscular anyway. But that's us as a human. I think that's where we are, and that's where some people can also be out of alignment, because there's a lot of statements that get made. For example, fake it till you make it with horses. And there's no faking it with horses. Could you use a heavy hand? Certainly. You could dominate them as well. And at the same time, really, it's about pulling in from your inner strength. And that means it's just a thought away, right? It's a thought away. So when you look at any of your guests or anything else, one can shift a whole scenario by a conversation or a thought or a glance, etc. And so this is what shifts it for the horses. And imagine that they live there. They're masters at body language, masters at energy, masters at telepathy. They live there. And how confusing it must be for them when somebody has a different thought than the body language is giving. There's so many components to this, which is not necessarily animal communication, because that can be done from across the miles, but it is still horsemanship.
So the feedback the animal's getting, and that you're getting from the animal, if you're paying attention, is actually more direct than just intuitive, it sounds like.
Correct. And there's all kinds of animal communication, because I'm teaching the Confident Horse and Rider Clinic when I come there, and a lot of that for me would be to capture the whisper and seek out the nuances. And if we were to simply look at horses, well, number one, if one looked at them as livestock or called them its versus he's and she's, I think that compartmentalizes dramatically, and they become working individuals versus, let's go all in, the spiritual beings that they are. And so therefore we're looking at those nuances to go, yeah, there's the eye that can give you the mood, the intention, the window to the soul. There's the ear that would move if it's locked on, they're paying attention to something, and it's going to tell you that their behavior is about to alter, or if their foot is in flight, fight, or indeed freeze. There's all of that. And yet, let's go deeper and not work at them, but with them instead, to turn around and say, well, what if feel was what was between our hands, not the pressure release, not the quantity of how much to apply or when and where to release, well, that is feel. But what if feel was to feel their intention behind the look or the pulling back or the exercise that one does? What if we went there with the feel, which would alter all of the horsemanship to come back to us entering into a compassionate field and way to say, let me read them truly, to go, are they blocked? Are they frightened? Are they with me? Are they connected? Are they paying attention? Are they watching what I'm doing because this is nonverbal communication? And am I totally in alignment with them so that I can feel how they're feeling emotionally, mentally, physically? And that goes way, way beyond doing something at them to go, okay, we're looking at disengaging, or we're looking at forward by tapping against the sides. No, let me feel them. Let me truly feel what's underneath me or with me. And that takes feel into a whole another category. So, yeah, there's nuances, and yet it's only when we pause and we find the silence that we can truly feel the energetic exchange.
That's really, really interesting. I know for myself, if I'm ever here and I've been nervous about something or stressed, I know when I go over and I start rubbing a horse's nose and talking to it, I calm down, and it seems like the horse is there to support me. Is that something that's real, or is that something I'm making up?
It's definitely real. I mean, there's evidence and science behind it that shows that horses can alter humans' heartbeats and vice versa. We know that horses can cool the foal back within 4 feet, that the mare can do that with her heartbeat. So we know that they can hear our heartbeats and sense it. So why not alter ours, or why not go into rhythm with ours, and vice versa? So when somebody's nervous, sitting on their back or standing close to them, of course they're going to sense and see that. And why stand by somebody, right? And there's certain horses that will be true healers to go, you know what, I can help you. And there's other horses that are going to turn away and run to go, this is too much for me. And this is the thing, right? If our glass is half full, we can help people and our fellow humans and community. But when our glass is half empty, it's a challenge to do so. And that's the same for horses. So if the horses feel like they're safe and they've got a life that their needs are being met, they might be able to do exactly what you're saying. They can come over to you and you're going to feel better in their presence merely by standing there, let alone looking at life coaching in any shape or form. But if they can't do that because they have been in a traumatic situation and state, then they need to be supported, again, just like us. So there's rescue horses that would need the respite, the time off, the support. And then there's other horses that are fully complete. And that goes for all of the humans, too, to go, who's defined by their history and who takes their history as a lesson and moves forward from it, right? There's so many people that walk around on the planet to go, well, I've had all these things happen to me and they're defined by it. Some might be called victims, and then there's others that would learn from it and gather that information and move through it. And that's Russell. I see Russell as that person time and time again. He might get knocked down. And in fact, I don't even know if he gets knocked down to get back up again, meaning he continues forward. He's a pillar of strength, continues forward. But if we all listed the things that have gone wrong, we wouldn't all be standing. And that goes for these horses too. Some can shed that skin and some are defined by their past. I know that went a slightly different way than you were saying, but it's a big field in the horse industry, and it's become bigger and bigger for us to acknowledge our part that we play in horsemanship that includes the self-development and the self-awareness.
Well, aside from your kind comments about me, that's a profound statement about anything or anybody, that the contrast between being defined by your history or learning from it. And on that, we're going to take a break.
The legendary basketball coach John Wooden from the UCLA Bruins knew how important shoes were for an athlete. The only contact the athlete has with a surface is their shoes. Great ranchers and people who care for horses know how important feet are to a horse. This is the reason so many are choosing Golden Wings horseshoes. These are shoes that just work. This is why Russell True of the White Stallion Ranch relies on them, and you can too. Visit goldenwingshorseshoes.com for more information.
So, Anna, the first half of this for me was quite eye-opening on animal communication. I'm really sitting here and I'm playing this over in my mind right now. So if my comments regarding your confident horse and rider kind of bleed through, I will apologize in advance because I can't get the animal communication completely out of my mind. So you're doing this confident horse and rider. What is the class about, and what do you hope to help the students accomplish?
Well, let me go backwards to go forward on that one. I've always felt that I never needed to reinvent a wheel. And there's so many accomplished horsemen and horsewomen out there that it was never meant to be about dressage or reining cow horse or a certain discipline. It truly was always about the connection. And this is another aspect that the words get thrown about and have been thrown about for over 30 years in the natural horsemanship world, where we look at trust, respect, and leadership. And at the same time, we're all thriving and striving towards the partnership. And for me, the partnership isn't treating them like livestock or slaves or prisoners or indeed a machine. It's always about seeing that they are their own personality. They're the individuals. They're ones that need to shine and also showcase. Now come back with me on a journey a little bit here, because I was 18 when I started policing in the UK. And I've always looked back and I've wondered, where did that come from? You know, what was it about me that was seeking something different to serve and to support? And a lot of it was about justice. Speaking up for the underdog and justice. Not to mention the variety in the day, etc., and always learning. But the same applies here with the confident horse and rider. So many horses are labeled incorrectly, labeled bad, when they're not. They're either in pain, they're misunderstood, mistreated. There's no such thing as a bad horse. There's different personalities, perhaps non-compliant. And so a lot of this was about bringing forward for individuals to see, what part do you play? What part of you changes this individual? Plus, if we're only looking at control, when the stakes are high, perhaps they're not going to help you. So if you're out in the outback and you're on trail rides and you're looking to have a true partnership isn't about controlling footfall, it's about influencing an individual, but also allowing them a voice and a choice. So this is how it was all born, to say there's more to horses than meets the eye. It's not what we're necessarily told to do, to ask them and tell them. It's ask, tell, right? And then to look at, are they doing what I'm asking from them? Well, there's no pleasure for them in it if there's no voice and a choice. So therefore, aligning all of this together meant, how do we create a confident horse? We come to understand them correctly. We look at their behavior. Let's become the translator. And in order to become the translator, I had to study horsemanship for a good 40 years to come to that point to go, they have a language, they speak silently, let's pay attention to it, let's read it. And instead of having incorrect statements about horses, bring it forward, bring the truth forward. So let's stop blaming these individuals, but taking ownership. So the Confident Horse and Rider Clinic is exactly about that. We start around, we look at relaxation, releases, we look at cooperation and collaboration, and we bring that into the saddle. And each day is slightly different, from safety to intuitive activities, as well as spook busting on the ground and in the saddle. And then there's an in-hand obs course and ridden obs course, and it's all about getting to know the horses, to say, when you get to know somebody inside and out, you're less likely to fear them. And when we look at control, a lot of that is a belief system to say, I don't want to be out of control. So therefore, let's start with partnership, which truly means I'm going to get rid of my fear and get the worry and the concern and replace all of that with a knowing that we can catch the whisper. So I put everything behind me from the past. I, too, came from a dominance-based horsemanship style from the 1990s, and I looked at it to say, let's refine this. There's more to horses. We can become more passive. To feel goes beyond what's in our hand. Let's bring in the visualization, the energetic connection, and when we have that and we feel more confident about ourselves, we'll feel more confident about being in the saddle. I think it's a unique concept, actually. I don't think that many people look at it the same way as I do, but it brings great satisfaction, great joy, great results for those who trust me to take them on that journey of self-discovery.
Well, I think the big statement out of that is great results. And, you know, something I heard you say in there is Russell will sometimes get a horse in here who has gone lame or is having pain or something like that, and he just looks at the horse, and I don't think he draws diagrams or anything else. He just builds a model in his brain, and he's able to work with that animal and get that animal to where it's either completely out of pain or just is obviously walking better. And I just think that's because he's able to get information from what the animal is doing and extrapolate that information to what needs to be done.
Well, you know, you're probably again giving me more credit than I deserve. If it's foot based, which 90% of lameness is, we're pretty good at that. We can do some stuff on the shoeing side, and we brought two horses from different ranches that we have that the managers, head wranglers wanted to euthanize, and you know, we put them in different shoes, fed them a little differently, and the horses are actually now for intermediate or above riders because they're so forward going. So you can do some stuff, but you know, I've told a lot of stories about Anna. I'm an experience-based cynic, so all that she talks about is hard for me to fully embrace on its face, but I'm a results guy, and I've seen it happen. And something Anna said was pain. And as we continue to learn about horses, one of our beliefs now, and we just believe it's a fact, is that a lot of misbehavior is pain-based. And you know, vets are great at what they do. They're not physical therapists, and so they'll miss a lot of stuff. And even if they catch it, they don't always have a solution. And we use a guy named Renee, who's a horse massager, which is like calling a rocket scientist a scientist. It far diminishes his role. And this comes together with Anna. We had a horse that we'd had for years and years, a beginner level horse, never did anything wrong. And a couple of times, I've told this story before, and the horse spun around and nearly dropped a couple of people, so we couldn't use him. And so Laura said, well, we're going to have him talk to Anna. And so the horse told Anna that he had a real big bunch of pain in his neck and, whatever had happened to him. So she calls Renee out. She doesn't tell Renee anything, doesn't tell him that that Laura's talked to, or that the horse has talked to Anna Twinney. And so he goes, does his magic. He's really good at what he does. And really quickly, he says, oh, this horse is out in his neck. And he does his thing. He's not a chiropractor, but he might as well be. And it was fixed, and the horse never did it again, ever, the rest of his life. And so it absolutely confirmed what Anna had let us know the horse was saying. So, am I a believer? Yeah. I struggle still because it just, there's no horses talking to me.
Sounds like they are, Anna. Sounds like they're talking to him.
But the pain is, pain is a big one. And if you don't have a Renee or an Anna to help you, vets are really good at certain things. But some of these other things you need, and as overall knowledge grows and grows, specialists have to be developed because there's too much knowledge. And you've got to know these different things.
It's remarkable. That's a great story.
Yeah. No, it's true, and they've heard it before if they listen. But anyway.
And this is the thing, right, Russell? Pain is often identified as physical, and that's the one that the veterinarians can see. But then there's the emotional and mental pain that people find harder to diagnose or to determine, and that is within horses too, because there's statements that state that horses are just in the now, or they're in the now. Well, they might be in the now when you're training them, but they too can grieve the loss of a baby or grieve the loss of a family member or environment. And then you've got all the emotions under the sun that don't get diagnosed or taken into account. So pain, when you look at the figure, 90% of pain, it can include the emotional, mental, which can manifest in physical. So there's that aspect that I think people need to realize when they bring animals or horses into their life. And the other piece with animal communication that's cool that you touched upon just there, and here's perhaps the extent of it too, if I've got time for a story. It was a horse in South Carolina, and the person that rang in said he's going to be euthanized on Monday, and he was a 4-year-old warm blood, young horse.
Terrible. Yeah.
And they had said he's 4 years old, been imported from Germany, and his buck is incredible. And so for me as a horse whisperer, and the fun thing and the good thing is to combine the two, to go, I've got a good eye on horses. I can identify a certain amount of aspects, having worked with thousands of them. And at the same time with animal communication, you can go through certain questions, because like anybody, if you just said to you, Russell, what's your problem? I'm making it up at home. You might go, there's no problem. And it's not until you'd identify to say, well, I heard something about the house. And you go, oh, that, I didn't even think of that. Well, the same with the horses. When we say to them, can you share with me about the bucking? They may come back with, I don't know what you mean. And it's not that they don't want to talk about it. It's more, we have to identify it. So I was able to go through aspects like feed that you mentioned, to go, what is your food? What's your living arrangement? How often are you turned out? What kind of rider do you have? Does the saddle fit? What about your teeth and veterinary care? And all of this came out to go, he had an amazing saddle. His turnout wasn't a lot, but he had a few hours a day. And yes, he had a trainer ride, and somebody that identified as a trainer is a good way to tell you. And the bottom line, after an hours of conversation, this is all through impressions, so vision, feeling in the body, and so on. The bottom line is he came back with, I buck at the mountain block as soon as somebody gets on. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. And I shared it. And she said, yes, that's when it happens. That's all she said. So he came back with the solution. Lunge me for 5 minutes. I came back with that to her and said, you know what, but if you lunge him, he doesn't bark. And she said, yeah, that's true. And I said, so why wouldn't you do that then? Why wouldn't you walk up that way then? And it was that moment to go, oh my God, you have a solution not to euthanize him, not to kill him, basically. He's telling you the solution. You know the solution. But at the same time, to give her a due, when you saw the buck, my goodness, I'm looking at the catapult to go, nobody could sit that. Nobody could sit that buck. And so, in other words, if we translated all of this, it would come back with, he's young, he's 4, he appreciated an emotional, mental, physical warm-up while moving around, and then he was comfortable with somebody getting on. He's going to grow out of that. And it was that piece to state, if you trust in your work, meaning this trainer, that you can warm him up, and you can trust in bringing him forward, he's going to be just fine. So here's the fun side. I went down about a year later. This was all done over the phone. Happened to go to dinner. with this young lady. And I said, well, tell me what happened. She said, I still got him today. She ended up buying him or keeping him because I think the other person that was going to euthanize was getting rid of him. So she kept him, and he's totally fine. So this animal communication isn't simply about, do they like their halter color or the blanket, or do they want shoes? It's not about that. This is about saving lives. And that's the degree and the extent of what I do. It's huge. It's absolutely huge to think about, because I could go on into different categories and tell you, I get phone calls. My emergency session today, after I come off the call, is to help with a German Shepherd, and she was meant to be euthanized in March, and she didn't. The lady didn't. The dog didn't, and the pup came back with, I would like to spend another spring and summer with my person, with a ton of detail, of course. And so she's still standing today. So we can alter euthanasia with the vet's blessing, and we can look at all kind of behavioral issues, physical issues. You can save thousands by talking to the horse themselves. And when we touch the pocketbook of individuals, that's when it impacts them. And mine's all evidence-based. Evidence-based, never generic. Always a ton of evidence.
Wow. So, totally off topic, but since we're friends, we know that you were right in the heart of the North Carolina weather disaster. How are things?
How are things? We were in the heart of it. North Carolina was not prepared and need not have been prepared, because storms of that magnitude have never made it to western North Carolina. Everybody went to bed believing they'd wake up with some rain. They didn't wake up with rain. The village next to us has been swept away. The 3 feet rivers went into 30 feet rivers, and homes, businesses, lives have gone. It's my understanding, and I say it like this, because social media, the news, speaking to people, it's all very conflicting and very confusing. But it's my understanding that over 1,000 lives have been lost to date.
No,
and many
kidding.
are unaccounted for. So this is big. It's in the mountains. There's other villages like Swannanoa, etc., that are still without power. The water system is affecting a lot of individuals that are now going to hospital due to it. I understand that the funding is not there, and that includes many individuals that have lost homes and loved ones and businesses. The funding is not there, and so government aid is limited. There's a lot of conflicts on the National Guard, and when FEMA got here, I spoke to the National Guard myself the other day, and they got here within a day, and yet the conflict remains with the fact that they didn't actually get to go into these areas, and other people were going in with mules and horses, and still going in with horses to people that have lost their homes, and there's individuals that are so sick that can't leave their homes. People were in mudslides that you can't even imagine until you see them on YouTube. In fact, we were without power for over a week, and we thought we were the worst hit here, because around us our neighbors were not hit, and we were looking at the 150 trees down on our property going, oh my God, it's awful, and no internet, no water for us or the horses, no power. And then I went up to the church and got the internet to realize, my goodness, less than a few miles down the road, Lake Lure and Chimney Rock had been devastated. And so that's just a few miles down the road, and Chimney Rock ended up in Lake Lure. So the devastation's been dramatic. I can't even imagine what it's done for the animal population, let alone the humans, and they're not even talking about animal counts. But I don't think the United States has had anything like this, and it's been called a 1,000-year storm. And then there's a ton of different things behind the scenes that are getting talked about. And they won't want me to throw this in, I'll tell you, but they've been talking about lithium and all kinds of things that you go, what is this about here? What is it about? And it leaves people confused, upset, concerned. There's survivor's guilt with a lot of people. It's extraordinary what this storm has done to this area.
And today, you said if you went one way, it's in another way.
That's true. So if we come out of our driveway and we went one way left towards Lake Lorne, Chimney Rock and Bat Cave, there's devastation because the whole river moved and it took with it Chimney Rock. And so that's still like that. And they're rebuilding the roads, rebuilding the homes. You're looking at a year, 2 years, who knows if they will rebuild it. And then the weirdness that plays with your mind is the fact that if you go right and you head out towards Columbus, North Carolina, everything's back to normal. People are doing their lawns and back to business, and conversations are the same. So I'm stuck in the middle. I'm stuck right at the threshold to say this is an odd place to find yourself in. It's extraordinary to find yourself in there. So yeah,
hard to imagine.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, and the news was odd. It would be keeping people away, so it would say that all the roads are closed, don't come to Mill Spring. And even then, there's, I think it's FedEx, don't quote me though, one of them though, still hasn't delivered any packages for the last month. They're all held up in Fletcher, North Carolina. And you look at that to go, well, my friend could come from Canada to help us. So he could get all the way down without a problem. In fact, we've had a course or two since, and students have come in from Oregon and Vermont and different places, no problem getting in here at all. And so the news is a little bit disorientating to say, are you stopping them because you don't want the big vehicles coming in? Why don't we want the big vehicles coming in? I'm not sure. So there's a lot of conflicting messages out there, but absolutely people can come to the area.
It sounds a little bit like, and I knew nothing, but listening to people who were in Hawaii or live in Hawaii, meaning post-Maui, and it was interesting. I will say, and this is apolitical, but I think you're hinting toward it, and I was at Circle Bar Ranch in Montana, and I listened to a bunch of people talk about a bunch of pretty extreme conspiracy theories from Hawaii to this, to that. And it wasn't the conversation, the theories. It was the fact that nobody rolled their eyes once. Everybody just went, wow, really? That happened? Wow, that meant... And I think that particularly post-virus, we as a culture have lost a lot of faith in the institutions. And so then it's a fertile breeding ground for conspiracy. So anyway, we've gone way, way over. Thanks for telling us about, it's just unbelievable. Who knew how bad anything like that could be? I mean, it's just a whole different version of Katrina. And so
a whole different, in a 1,000-year storm. And sorry, just to take your piece a little bit there, Russell, and I think that's the confusion. There's talk about Chimney Rock and Asheville having lithium. And so were they
that's made it out here, yeah.
Yeah, was that a target, or is that, there's no such thing as a fluke. So there's a lot of questions that are up in the air with everything.
Yeah.
So it's very sad, very distressing. And yes, we're all doing our little piece or big piece to help. And we've been bringing in clothing because the temperatures dropped to 40. So there's clothing gone, warm clothing, and food going out for the animals. So I'm going to be holding a Reiki class, actually, an energy healing for horses class, and I'm going to get it out there so that people can come from the area to support their horses, because this comes full circle to say they have been through trauma. Horses were floating away.
Oh.
They floated down the river. One of the guys that brought hay said he lost X amount of cattle that went into the river because they didn't realize it was roaring, as they're trying to get away. And so the devastation expands, and the psychological the psychological impact on these individual animals hasn't even been explored yet.
Well,
So there we go.
on the good side, we're going to have Anna Twinney at White Stallion for animal communication and Confident Horse and Rider, and I think there's still a spot or two last minute if you want to come meet Anna and do all these amazing things. And we've seen it happen, and we didn't even get into your history in Mustang breaking and the differences. We'll talk again about that. It's a whole different, yes, they're horses, but they require a different approach to be successful, if that's a fair statement. So White Stallion Ranch with Anna Twinney coming up, and learning about your books, videos, etc. Where do they go?
Well, they go to my outdated website, reachouttohorses.com.
Well, we have an outdated website too. It's embarrassing. So reachouttohorses.com.
Yes.
I'll be glad to meet you, Anna. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Look forward to it as well.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and my goodness, once again, as we say here, you oftentimes learn more here by accident than most places by design. What a wonderful story about Anna's experiences, about horses, and truly things about life itself. Well, that's just a part of what we do here at the Cowboy Up podcast program, and it's my privilege, my pleasure. My name is Stan Houston, and I'm one of the founders of the movement along with Russell and his good team here at the White Stallion Ranch. And this program comes directly from the White Stallion Ranch, and we're looking forward to you being here in person. The season of being in the Southwest is just beginning, so reach out to us at whitestallion.com, whitestallion.com, and we would love to hear from you. cowboyuppodcast@gmail.com, cowboyuppodcast@gmail.com. Give us some suggestions, some comments. Perhaps you'd like to audition to be on the program, or you know somebody who would be a great guest for us together. We want to make sure that this works for all of us as we press on through the challenges and choices we have to make right now and throughout the new year. So thank you so very much for being with us. We look forward to you joining us again at the Cowboy Up podcast. And of course, from time to time, we're also going to put a little cowboy music on the program for you, and we just might do a little bit of that right now. Our good friend Greg Hager just returned from Japan, where he did a long tour of those people enjoying Cowboy Up music. He says they just love the cowboy way and the cowboy songs in Japan, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about that on an upcoming program. So once again, it's Greg and the Cowboy Way.
I'll tell you once again, my friend, about the cowboy way. You've got a chance to master it and live it every day. It really isn't difficult. It's mostly common sense. Just doing what you know is right, respect and moral fence. The code is loosely written 'cause it's something that you do. Love your neighbor as yourself, your God and country too. A cowboy never acts unfair to foe and not to friend. He never will betray his trust, he's loyal to the end. A cowboy always tells the truth, he's gentle and he's kind. He keeps a sense of tolerance, of race and creed in mind. He always will be helpful, not afraid to take a stand. His honor tied to bigger things, he's riding for the brand. He respects the role of womanhood, his parents, and the law. He tips his hat, he don't look back, he trusts until the draw. The cowboy code is how we all should live and work each day. It's all about the things we do and not the words we say. His handshake is more binding than a paper signed with name. A cowboy's never lazy and he won't be put to shame. I'll describe it to you differently. It's not just rural roots. The real cowboy is defined by more than hat and boots. Those who finish tasks completely and take responsibility. Regardless of the end results, stand tall for all to see. Those who live this cowboy way because it's proven tried and true can share the Western spirit, they're a real cowboy too.